Hello, this is Jason Augustus Newcomb, and we are inside the Magic Circle. Today I am talking to a sorceress whose entire life is infused with magic. She is a doula, she is an herbalist, she is a mother and a wife and a sex worker. So almost all feminine mysteries are represented in her work. And her work exists both inside and outside the Magic Circle. She's a fascinating person. I know that you're going to enjoy watching this interview. I'm speaking, of course, of Ma Huesera. I apologize if I murdered the pronunciation of that, but that this is Ma Huesera. Thank you for being on the show, Ma.
Thank you so much. In actuality, you can call me Sarah.
Yeah, you like to get
name. I answer this question a lot. Ma Huesera is my like nerdy D&D name that I use on Facebook because I'm trying to avoid my high school students finding me because my page is a little, personal. So thank you. Hi.
Hi. It's interesting because when I got started in my first sort of public representation was actually publishing a book that got published by a decently large publisher, and it never even occurred to me that it might be a good idea to kind of separate that publishing life from my real life. But now as a parent and and a business owner and different things in my life, sometimes it does feel like maybe I should have had some sort of magical name to slightly insulate myself. But I'm not the only one who's made that silly choice, but you're probably smart to do so. And I'm always like, they obviously have something on me. So I want to talk to you about a bunch of the different areas of your life. But first, let's start with just kind of a basic, how did you become interested in magic? How did you become interested in, let's start with magic, and we'll move to the other areas as they come up.
Okay, that's a great starting point. I do want to interject that now that we started the interview, I'm definitely a little nervous.
Oh, yeah. Have you been interviewed before in this way, or no?
No, I haven't. So my brain runs like 1,000 miles a minute. So if I suddenly stop talking and just stare off into space, just wait a second. I'm just processing.
It's totally fine. We both have a lot of sounds in the background. It sounds like you've got some animals and some children, and I've got some animals and some children here. So when we can't think of anything to say, the people can just enjoy the background noises of our lives.
Okay. But anyway, how did I get into magic? I don't know how personal you want to get, because magic is just generally infused in my life. It's never been a professional decision, or I'm not really an authority on it or any sort of thing. So, this is just going to be a general narrative. So I guess childhood, of course, I think that all children believe in magic until some sort of fear or shame enters their life, and then they kind of doubt it. And, they stop believing. I find that the belief in God in general suffers that sort of fate. There's
Sure.
always this sort of loss, of innocence.
Were your parents spiritual or involved in any sort of, esoteric pursuits?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. We belonged to the Methodist church growing up, but when I was probably 5, I remember, my father coming in, I might have even been younger, I don't know, coming in and asking me if I wanted to go to Sunday school today. And I said, no. And he said, do you want to go to Sunday school ever? And I said, no. And he was like, good, we don't want to take you anymore. And I was like, okay. So, we technically belonged to the Methodist church for a while. But my father, in general, wasn't an atheist, kind of I believe in something bigger than myself, but you can't find God in a church.
Right. And he didn't want to keep going.
Right. And
so he wanted to use you as an excuse to be able to.
Right.
Sarah doesn't want to go anymore. We gotta stop going. Sorry.
Yeah. My daughter ordained. Yeah. Oh, yes. My husband is a gigantic Hawaiian man, and he's trying to stay out of the video, so he's crawling around me. So if
you can be in it for a moment. That's fine. Yeah.
He's just trying to be polite, but it's really funny.
You'd be surprised how many of these interviews I see a shadow walk by behind the person. So it's clearly they have either roommates or spouses just sort of wandering around behind them. So
right.
I'm pretty used to, the interesting thing about these home interviews is that people are, in their environment, people kind of want to like control that experience so they don't seem as, but I mean, I love your herbs in the background. That's a very nice, this isn't like something for sale. She's not in a shop. This is just how she keeps her herbs. So that's very well organized in comparison to the way that I keep my herbs. But what's that?
I'm just such a nerd. But anyway, I can continue to answer that question.
No, let's keep going. So you quit the church early on, but you had sort of inklings of magical things in your consciousness. At what point did it, after the sort of natural, we all become, I feel like there's stages in everyone's lives when we become like 10 or 11, we all become atheists for a second because, we're going, logic is coming in. Now we're going nuts. Yeah. We understand the world. But then you sort of start.
Prove it.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how old are your children?
4 and 6.
Oh, okay. So they're pretty young still.
Yeah.
It's a dramatic shift that takes place around that time period in life, at 10, 11 years old, where people really shift. So when did the sort of spiritual or magical longings reemerge in you?
This journey is probably like it's pretty long journey for me because I went through so many ups and downs about it. It's clearly something that I took seriously. It was either like I really took rational thoughts seriously, or I took magic really seriously. So, with my childhood, I spent like periodically like lonely childhood. Like my childhood was weird, and so I spent a lot of time just literally being locked outside for like the entire day, and I wasn't allowed in anybody else's house either. So like it required me to make friends of like the most random things, like ants, any sort of neighbor's dog, like any sort of like a tree, like any sort of thing. And so I kind of was able to create this sort of like magical world to entertain myself for a lot of my youth.
Was that a city, the country, the suburbs?
It was a suburb.
Oh, okay.
Although I spent all my summers at my grandparents' and my uncle's farm, which was like a huge positive impact in my life. And so I had, a lot of connectivity talking to my uncle about, weather and crops and helping like bale hay and, that kind of stuff, and taking care of I had a horse. I'm a horse girl. Horseback riding was a huge thing that like created a sort of connectivity to living things.
Sure. That elemental connection with something that is separate from you, but you kind of become really connected with it as you're moving together. I can totally see that.
Right. And I have a pretty big opinion that I think like humanity was totally fucked after we stopped riding horses as transportation, stopped that sort of, nurturing something that nurtures you back and
sure.
And being connected to your environment as you pass through it. So, I could talk about that forever. But to answer your question, so then after all that, maybe about 14 years old, I think a lot of people in my generation, got back into tarot cards, and Wicca had a resurgence, and just kind of wanting to find that connection, being lost. Being 14, 15 and having a lot of thoughts and life experiences. A lot of us are starting to have sex and have relationships, but being just totally lost about being told what to do, but having hormones and jobs. it was really hard.
Right.
And so, you want to reach out and find something bigger and greater than just going to school and having stupid conversations with people that bore the shit out of you. You need something more. And so tarot was huge for me. But
that was really your formal introduction to the sort of magical worldview, was through the tarot?
Yeah, that was a big thing. But, the books really turned me off. So, but I still kept up with it. And then I think that held me together, until I discovered men and alcohol. Then it was just I just like lost any sort of magic for like a decade.
I'm sure that the audience would rather hear you talk about men and alcohol, but just really because I'm nerdy, I'm wondering what turned you off about what books turned you off? Was it books about tarot you're talking about?
No, not particularly. I mean, although I don't really find like tarot books that like tell you explicitly like what cards mean in this sort of way as being helpful. You know, we're looking at a card and it's, you know, your divination through intuition. That's how they work. So reading a book and it being like, oh, the Ace of Cups means this, you know, aside from looking at what the elemental purpose of it is and the vessel and, you know, the numerology or all that kind of stuff, an overarching understanding of symbolism is good, but having a book tell you what the card means, I think is absolutely detrimental. And so no, it wasn't really the books, but it was like, you know, Silver Raven Wolf and like all those little books, okay. Silver Broomstick. I mean, even Scott Cunningham, like, you know, seems like a really great person. They all are great, but, you know, it was a little too hokey for me. You know, it was like Love and Light and,
sure,
you know, the rule, you know, the threefold rule and like, you know, all that kind of stuff where you're just like, you know, men are fallible. Like, I don't trust another human being to be able to tell me how to intuit my environment. And it just kind of felt, it wasn't enough. And it also didn't utilize enough science, like enough explanation of like, what's actually happening when this happens, you know, what's going on, right? And I can talk about this forever, so sorry.
What's that?
I could like keep going and like.
No. Keep going. Hey, you'd be surprised. Some of these older men who you know have written 1,000 books, they just go on and on and on. I love it. I'm not saying that I don't want it, but you know, like you are not being overly long-winded, believe me. So you felt like you had sort of an intuitive connection with your magical world, and you didn't really need to have a lot of sort of book learning. Yeah, well, it's something that came naturally to me. So that was really exciting. And it's not something that I put a lot of work into, like reading tarot or divination. Something I've always been really good at. Because I guess I trust my intuition. Like I can even be like only half engaged in it and it comes to me. Yeah. There are a lot of other things in sort of the magical realm that I'm not good at all. And I have to work hard. What are those things? Talking to spirit guides. Okay. I can't see ghosts. I can't, you know, when I try to talk to my ancestors, like especially my own mother and my grandmother, you know, I really want them to talk back and it's never really been something, although when I do try to manifest things and discuss it with them, that always seems to work. You know, I do get symbolism. And so I see a lot of symbols. So they're in your corner. They're just not real vocal with you. No, and I think that my mind isn't at rest enough. I think that, you know, I'm not particularly great at meditating or, you know, the transcendental mind space at this point in time. So I just don't think that I'm available even if I demand it. You know, like I'm just, well, it's just not working. I mean, I don't want to sound like a salesman here, but that's actually one of my, I mean, tarot and visionary things are actually my forte in magic. And I actually do teach a course on sort of opening up to your inner scrying abilities. That's pretty effective. I once was teaching like an hour and a half long class, and a woman at the beginning was like, I can't see anything in my mind's eye. And by the end, she was like, describing these vivid things, and I was like, it seems like you're seeing stuff, and she's like, oh yeah, I just didn't understand this is what we were doing. So I can see, I have a great mind's eye, and I can see, and I can divine with anything, and I always have been able to do that. But when it comes to like communicating with my ancestors or like seeing ghosts or seeing into the other realm, I'm not that great at it. And what I'm saying is, don't sell yourself short. You don't necessarily need to be in a you know, super zoned out, you know, meditative state in order to activate that space. You know, if you're interested, you can you know. Yes. But so back to your story though. First of all, what kind of tarot do you use for your readings? I mean, I use the Rider-Waite deck. I like the sort of traditionality of it, except I use a really pretty one with like gilded, whatever. I think I know the one. I actually use that too, because I used to use the Aleister Crowley Thoth tarot because I felt connected with that personally, but the Rider-Waite, when people see it, when you're doing a professional reading with someone, it seems like they like that. You know, they when you bring out like angel oracles, they're like, what is this? And you know, but when they see the tarot, they understand or the Rider-Waite tarot, they understand you're doing a tarot reading. Anyway, let's go back to men and alcohol for a second. So you were interested in the tarot, and then you sort of got distracted by boys and drugs. Actually, I say the same thing when I have to tell my life story. I go, there's a certain point where I just sort of like, you know, it faded out for a little while. But for me, it was girls.
The interpersonal journey just stopped being pleasant. I mean, honestly, you know, like, I didn't want to deal with anything of my past. You know, and then I just like used all these like horrible coping mechanisms. You know?
Sure. Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah, I had like 10 years of just like, you know, probably from like 15 to 25 where like I wasn't really a magical person. Like, you know, that wasn't it. That wasn't what I was trying to do, you know? So, but when I was about 25, actually, it was probably more like 23. I think I was 25 when I moved to Hawaii. I don't know. But it's when I discovered sailing and sailboats. So that absolutely changed my entire trajectory of my life, created the foundation of who I am, and basically where I can credit almost like anything positive of the turn of my life. And I have, you know, my mentor, Mark Bainbridge, to thank for that, because you know, I was starting to teach, and I was a student teacher and was assigned to his class, and he was a marine biology teacher.
Right. So when you say teacher, you mean a teacher in the sense of school and children and stuff, not a mystical teacher. In this context, that word gets thrown out in a different way sometimes. So you had become a teacher in your early 20s.
Right. Yeah, I did it, you know, for direction. And so I could have like time off. And so I could like work with sort of like traumatized youth and kind of make people, what I'm good at is nurturing. So I wanted to kind of nurture. And that what seemed like a good idea, because then I could still do whatever I wanted, you know, in the summers and have a substantial amount of time to myself. So it seemed like the perfect answer. But anyway, my teacher and one of my best friends now, he lived on his boat, or you know, I don't think full time at that point in time, but he had a sailboat and he lived on it sometimes. And I just thought that was the wildest thing I'd ever heard. Like, I thought it was so cool. And I grew up terrified of the ocean, so I was absolutely batshit terrified. I didn't even like to be on the dock. Like, I just envisioned, like, you know, I have like repeating nightmares even still of like being in an inch of ocean and being like eaten by something, or like just some sort of scary thing.
I have that same recurring dream, actually, about creatures in the water.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's such an archetype, and it's exacerbated by like living around cornfields your whole life and not getting it. But
where did you grow up? Hello, have I lost you? What state did you grow up in?
In Ohio.
Oh, okay. But now you're Hawaii and California.
Yeah. As a side note, you know, like I love the volcanic aspect of Hawaii, and you know, there's a huge celestial component to the Big Island, but I also like really crave the cold and the fog and like the sort of vivaciousness of the ocean here.
Sure.
So I you know, like I said, I think earlier, I'm a Gemini, so I'm just always kind of in that weird liminal space where I just want both. Anyway, so I found boats, and what was interesting is that, you know, it was this harbor, and it, you know, was super rural. There were like mountain lions around and everything, but it was like right under the Golden Gate Bridge too. But the thing is that with boats is that not only could I challenge myself in a fear that I have of the ocean, which terrified me, but I was absolutely drawn to it. You know, ever since I was a little girl, I loved mermaids. I loved all the weird mythology, the scary denizens of the deep, you know, it's always really fascinating. Once I, you know, moved on, like bought a boat, moved on to my own boat and started living on the water. And I realized that that's like the witchiest thing you can really do, is because you're literally living on the tides that like run the whole planet.
Right.
You are in touch with them. You carry your little book around. You know exactly what the moon is doing. You know exactly what the tides are doing. You know, you understand the seasons, but you're also like looking at like, not like I studied, you know, non-instrumental celestial navigation. So also like being able to be in the middle of nowhere, look at the stars and be able to kind of do an ETAC as you follow one star that follows another and know what direction you're going. And I have no intuitive sense, like a compass direction at all, but that was such a skill that I really enjoyed learning. And so that, I don't know. And also, to be honest, there's nothing like sailing that has like, or the ocean in general, that has more like sort of folkloric superstition, you know, sort of like components to it. And, you know, those sort of celebratory and sort of spooky things just seal the deal for me. So that's what got me started. And then, let me see. Oh, and also I got a dog, and I think that helped a lot too.
The magic of the dog.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have anything to nurture, you know, aside from like,
Sure.
you know, friends or whatever, but I think having a dog really, like, you get that bond. And then, you know, after all that and dedicating my life to, you know, the ocean and sailing opened me up to moving to the Big Islands, without knowing anything about it, just knowing that there was an active volcano on it and it was the best place to see the stars. So just moved like up and moved out, like lived in my van, like my, I don't know what it was. It was like an Isuzu something, I don't know. But like built a like platform bed in the back and moved all my stuff and with my dog and moved to the Big Island and then
to
like,
living in a car or a vehicle.
Yeah. Well, I went from a boat to a car, so it wasn't that huge
Sure.
of a
I guess yeah. You're used to that sort of compact lifestyle.
My sailboat was 27 feet long. Like it wasn't super huge. So, you know, kind of having that sort of lifestyle definitely influenced me. And then being pregnant and becoming a mother really kind of nailed the witch coffin for me, and my identity really solidified. So
during that whole process, like how related to magic were you at that during those phases? Were you considering yourself, you know, I'm sort of a witch, I'm sort of a sorceress at this point? Like, you know, what were you considering? Because you're having these sort of elemental experiences, the ocean, the stars, the animals, and then motherhood. So what was happening inside you in terms of your self-identity at that point? Were you consciously magical, or what was going on?
You know, yes, I was, but I never used the W term for a long time because I still had that sort of hang up that it was kind of hokey, like kind of still that like love and light, you know, whatever that I didn't really.
Wicca was cheesy, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I just thought it just wasn't. It didn't speak to my heart. It wasn't. Didn't seem natural to me. It didn't seem. And this is not an insult to people that do believe in it, because if you do, then you're a really, really good person. Like, I honestly think that there isn't anything bad about it until, you know, of course, just like Christianity, if you think about it, like a lot of ways, it's really good people, right? But then when you use it as a position of authority or judgment, then you start to get kind of fucked. So, you know, it's nothing personal against Wicca. That was my only exposure and I didn't feel it. So once I started to learn more about traditional witchcraft, I guess, it started to open up my doors. But then I also kind of just threw that out the window because I just realized that I just wanted to kind of live my life totally and fully enraptured with the sort of, I guess, witchy elements. I don't know. You know, the seasons and the cycles and blah, 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 and just that being my life rather than like a school of thought, if that makes any sense.
It absolutely does. You know, in many ways, I can identify with what you're saying, although, I mean, I'm pretty identified with Hermetic magic at this point. I often just sort of consider myself a human. You know, people ask me what my spiritual beliefs are, and I say, I'm a magical person. I don't know. I don't really have a lot of beliefs about anything. But so. Well,
and I honestly think that, you know, that's sort of like the masculine side and the feminine side of things. Like, I really embrace the hyper femme parts of who I am and parts of life. Like, you know, I appreciate the sort of like ferality, the destructive component, the intuitive component, all that piece. And like, y'all can take the rational piece and the math part and all that. And I don't, and like, I'm a feminist. I mean, in a lot of ways, like I consider myself a misandrist, just because of, that's what keeps me safe, honestly. And that keeps me grounded. And I like the binary, but I think that, and when I say that, I don't mean that I believe that binary exists in that sort of way. I totally believe in the spectrum,
sure.
But I love being all the way to like the left, right? I love that piece of it.
Yeah.
And that's where my brain goes.
Sure. I mean, everyone, I mean, in order to allow freedom, you have to be free to be where you want to be, if you're only allowed to like be in the middle somewhere, then that's not really freedom. So you are clearly a devoted herbalist as well. So at what point did that come into the story?
I think that came into the story after I discovered that midwives exist. So I didn't like just always know this. Like, this wasn't an intuitive thing. This is something that I learned quite recently, like in the scheme of things, in the past 10 years. So when I realized midwives exist is when I got this, like, basically feeling like someone poured like alcohol over my body and lit me on fire. Like, it was like this super rush of like icy cold burning sensation that I had never felt in my life, except for maybe when I first walked on a dock and on a boat.
So is that primarily, like, your personal identity then is mostly as a midwife in various ways? No?
No.
Just love it.
I mean, in a way, because there's, sorry, I'm getting like notifications. It's irritating. Midwifery is a huge part of my life, and it's what led me to all the rest. However, herbalism has kind of taken the forefront. So I haven't been able to do a whole lot of midwifery work, whether it be like birth midwifery or death midwifery, because of having children and moving constantly, and volcanoes erupting and deaths in families and different things like that keep my family kind of nomadic, and up to this point. So herbalism is kind of what I could always take with me, and so that's basically my biggest crux of who I am is the herbalist piece.
I want to talk about a couple things kind of together because there's a off you go. There's a.
Yeah, and my son is crawling on the ground.
my son is making a lot of noise in the other room. So hello there.
He just breathed in my mouth. Why did he do that? Okay.
I eat popsicles.
Oh, you ate popsicles. Oh, that's the way he tells me he eats popsicles. Okay. Sorry.
That's fine. So it's good that he left the room though, because I wanted to talk about a subject that I don't know how much he's involved in. But so I noticed when I was sort of reading up on you that you have an OnlyFans page, and you mention in your bio various places that you've been a sex worker. I'm not sure how much those two things are connected at this point, but you also said that you're a witch for hire on that OnlyFans page, and there
Yes.
and with kind of an implication that maybe like a witch for hire is kind of like a there's something slightly sexual about it. I don't know. It seemed to have some undertones of that.
Yeah.
There. So describe what that is like, because I mean that's an interesting part of who you are. Now, obviously, it connects a lot of these pieces together.
Right. I think that that a huge part of this is my identity. As the sort of like, I offer the femme pieces to the world around me and to people around me, and part of that is sex, like a huge part of who I am. I've been working the sex industry for 20 years. It was year 2000, I think, after I graduated high school, and it started off as just like a means to survive, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's like a means to survive, and
it's an exodus from the room as I bring this topic up. There's been like 3 people leaving, but okay. So yeah, it's a means to survive.
Unrelated, actually.
Where does this fit within your chronology that the sex industry became a part of it?
About the time that like a couple years into the men and alcohol part, right?
Okay.
So, right. So about graduating high school, you know, had a couple like not really great relationships, dealing with like childhood trauma, like all this kind of stuff, and then really wanting to like prove my worth and that I could support myself, and really just, and also like it's about the time where I decided that what I didn't want to do is like waste my time at like a grocery store because I'm a college student and like work bagging groceries, or like be a cashier, or like do something that just did not fulfill me. Sure. And so rather than to do something mundane and bullshit, I decided that I'd work in the sex industry, because at least it challenged me. It kept me in sort of a primitive piece of humanity that felt important to me, and also kept my interest. I didn't do it right at first. You know, I did a couple different pieces of the industry that I eventually just had to write off.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, like, you know, working as like a phone sex operator was severely traumatizing. It wasn't.
I couldn't imagine doing that. But
yeah, because people have, they take advantage of you.
Sure.
You know, because people have really fucked up fetishes, and right. they will do things that are like, if you don't do this for me, then I'll do this to them. And so you would get in these traps, and it was too much. And so
you were like 18 when you were doing that, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or 18, 19, I think is when I started. And then, you know, working as like a stripper and like all that kind of stuff. And that was fun. I met a lot of great girls. And started to feel comfortable in my sexuality, my body as being an entity aside from a relationship. Mm-hmm. And so that was really important, just like discovering who I was. And also, like I said, being a piece of the primitive part of life. But then, you know, when I lived in New York, I moved to New York after I graduated college, and I started working as a professional dom in Manhattan, and that was awesome. I loved it so much.
I mean, that sounds like the best out of those things, because you're totally in control. They want you to be in control, and you're running the show. It's essentially what you want, right? You get to.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pieces to it that are like, they're like, you know, sometimes they want to like line you up like you're like a stable, and then you get chosen. And I didn't like that piece, and so like I opted out of a lot of that kind of stuff, and like sort of expanded your own thing. But it was empowering, and to meet other women that were like super smart and able to function in this capacity and like work through their personal traumas and really like take charge of their life, changed my life. And I also worked as like a stable hand at the Claremont Riding Academy in Manhattan as well. So like some days I would walk around covered in horse shit, and other days I'm like, you know, wearing latex. So like it was just such a dynamic life that I led. And eventually though I moved to Ireland because I wanted to get away from the city, and you know, moved to Spain, and I moved back to Ireland, and then I eventually moved to California, and it was, you know, it was quite a journey. But you know, always just kind of looking for like my environment to reflect my inner environment, and realizing that and this was all prior to sailing, right? So once I moved to San Francisco, I discovered the ocean, discovered boats, got a dog. Like it was like, oh, this is who you are. You need this sort of like untamable wildness around you to feel safe and feel good. So
and you didn't find that in Ireland? I would think that's a fairly elemental place in a lot of ways.
No, I did find it in Ireland actually, but my sister had a baby, and so I wanted to come back and be, you know, life does those kind of things, right?
Right, so, of course.
So I wanted to come back and be around for her for that. And then what we did as a family is, you know, we're from Ohio, is that we decided as a family to choose a city or a place that we all wanted to move to, and move to it together. So we did. So we all decided on San Francisco.
Your whole family?
Not my father, but my siblings.
At what point did you lose your mother? I noticed you mentioned that she was in the ancestral place.
Oh yeah, when I was very young, I was 3 years old. Suicide.
Did your father did you have the evil stepmother, or did your father just raise you?
I absolutely did, yes. Yeah, so my life was like very Disney, you know, it was totally like that whole story. And so I related to fairy tales from the very beginning, because for some reason they're all the same in the beginning. So like I've got this kind of weird, deep respect for the mother wound. And you know, my astrology, it reflects that as well, you know, like, you know, my fourth house is like a big deal to me. My moon is in Cancer, my North Node is in Cancer, my DNA asteroid is in Cancer. You know, that's all the house of nurturing and mothers.
And you clearly have a full home, because we're seeing them all move back and forth through your life.
So like this whole mother thing is such a piece of my life, and it supposedly is like what my work is, and also what, you know, what I'm healing and what I'm creating. And when you look at my chart, it's basically like telling me that this is what I need to make sure that I do right. It's also intuitively what's the most important. So it's funny when you like wrote the thing where you're like, mother ? Are you a mom? I'm like, oh shit.
I thought you were, but I wasn't sure, you know.
Yeah, no, it was just like, yeah, definitely.
That's the most important one.
Right.
So you're working as a dominatrix in New York. You decided to travel around. Did you take that sort of sex worker persona with you on that journey, or was that something that that sort of ended at that point?
Well, I didn't take her with me, but I didn't kick her out of the bed for eating crackers or whatever you say. That's who I am. So, you know, throughout from that point on until now, I've always kind of had, you know, hand in that honeypot, I guess. Like whether it's like, there's so many different ways to do it. I don't want to like describe all of them, but I always have like a toe in that water, you know?
But I mean, it's mostly internet stuff at this point that you're talking about, or because I mean you're traveling, so yeah. Okay. Mostly. Okay, so
then, you know, I'm married, and we're not in a polyamorous relationship necessarily, but you know, my husband encourages this kind of work. You know, he sees that my sexuality is an exterior part of myself as well as an interior. It's a huge piece of me. And that is important, and he kind of benefits from it, honestly. If it's kind of on my mind, then it's kind of on my mind. So he's not insecure about it, which I think is really valuable. But it isn't something that I do do one-to-one anymore.
Okay, so it's more just you have content and stuff that you're offering or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an exploration for me too. And my OnlyFans is like kind of like half-assed. It's kind of for me to figure out, you know,
what I found interesting about your, I mean, like I can't see anything on it, but I found interesting about your presentation about your OnlyFans is that you wanted to infuse that with some of the magical energy as well. Have you managed to do that in an effective way, or are you still figuring it out?
No, I'm still figuring it out. Yeah, so right now my works are all in the air, but when it comes to like the witch for hire part and like that's sort of like what girlfriend experienced, but as a witch, like right. the idea is that, you know, I see women as so much of that, like being like, you know, all of our value all in one, being like healers and being mothers and being you know
and infusing things with magic, manifesting things, you know. I feel like you know,
part.
Yeah.
I mean, the chaos energy that women bring, like that's what it is. And sexuality is a huge part of that. And I want a way to kind of piece all that together. So, you know, when I think about a witch, I think about all of that. And I want to bring that to other people. And I want people to see that as a value, that you can have all of those things and tick all those boxes. Like we're not like, it's not like Madonna whore syndrome, right? Like there's actually like a whole beautiful entity that women can be and can do, right? So I want to practice being all of that and offering that as a service, right? So you know, I want to be able to read people's cards and give them like daily advice and involve their life into ritual and create you know, like healing. So another huge part of what I do is that I'm starting to create ritualized holistic health subscription boxes. And I decided on subscription boxes, not because they're kind of like hokey. I actually really think they're cute to get like packages, and I
Sure.
think that
Yeah, yeah.
really nice.
People love
But
it.
also because then it creates a steady relationship, right? Like, so
right. Absolutely.
Something that you
And
build
so
on.
would that include kind of like a regular reading and then and some sort of herbal stuff, maybe a charm or something like that? Is that what you're thinking the subscription would look like? Or
Yeah, so the boxes, so the boxes would be depending on what it is that you need. And part of it, if you want to tie it into this, is like sexuality is a part of that too. So, you know, I would focus the box on like what kind of healing needs to happen. And sometimes that will be like very obvious, like, you know, you're too hot and you have like irritated, like, you know, energetics, and you need, you know, this and that, this kind of tea and this kind of like body oil, and like, you know, I definitely want to like approach things like that. But it could also be like something different, right? It just depends on, you know, I have a huge form that people fill out, and it's super in depth and totally holistic in approach. And so it varies, right? And just like on my OnlyFans profile with the, you know, which for hire, it's like, it's just sort of like a full service sort of thing, right? Like the witch that like gets hired by a king, you know what I mean? Like it's that sort of idea of like, there's somebody here to serve you in this sort of aspect, except for that you get, you know, it's a mutual exchange, you know, as opposed to like maybe like whatever that dynamic would be. But, you know, I like the idea of being able to provide this sort of full service thing for other people.
And do you feel like that part of what you have to offer is something for women as well, not just for, you know, male sexuality being thrown at you, but maybe helping women with their sexual energy in some ways as well?
Oh, 100%. I'm, you know, I'm definitely into women. Always have been. I think that's fairly common. I just find the need less with women. So that's something that I'm definitely available for, but it's never been something that, aside from like a mutually exclusive relationship, that somebody has sought me out for healing in that way. Not to say that it is impossible, and please message me if it is something that you need. I'm definitely not saying that this is any sort of binary at all. Anyone in any part of the, you know, spectrum, you know, I love.
I love your herbal display that you've got behind you. How do you keep it so organized? Is it alphabetical, or it's just so aesthetically pleasing? What? It's not?
It is not. No, it's actually just organized by use. So like,
okay.
So you see, like, I've got like a huge amount of like not a huge amount, excuse me. I have plenty of like bigger jars, and then as the jars go up, depends on how often I use them.
So the higher up, the less frequently used.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very
and then
cool...
I've got like jars of shit all over the place. Like I got stuff upstairs, you know.
So this is just the attractive part. So the part that looks like my herb collection is upstairs.
Yeah. Well, okay. And then like, I know that you ask about ritual spaces too, and like a huge part of my ritual.
Very intuitive, because I was about to shift gears to talk about, I was about to say, let's talk about inside the magic circle for a moment. So yes, let's talk about your ritual space and what you do there.
Right. So, you know, I don't, like I said, I don't pay much attention to like ritual in sort of a specific way. I guess I don't, like, I'm not following a book, but you know, my ritual space is more, I need water. So showers, baths, pools, you know, anything like that. Not like a swimming pool with like chlorine in it or something, but like, you know, fresh water. Mm-hmm. I need it for my sanity. I need it to, you know, if I'm stressed out, I have to take a shower. If I'm like, it's like I'll take 3 showers a day sometimes, or 3 baths a day, just because like if I'm cold or if I'm stressed out, or if like just the way I start my day, I can't start my day without it. And I'm really blessed to live in such a cool house and have such a cool bathroom that it's like this bathtub, but it's like got an easement, or, you know, whatever I don't know. But the shower is like short, so I sit in the shower, and so I sit and I have like a little tea kettle, like a little camp stove with a tea kettle. So I like make my tea in my shower, and I've got like a little like platform of like a piece of driftwood with like my tarot cards and my candle and my singing bowl and my menstrual salts that I use.
So you feel like that's kind of your ritual space then, your
every morning, yeah.
Your bathing area. So that's where your magic is really sort of coming from in a lot of ways. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, I feel like water, you know, transmutation is most to me most successful through water. So sitting in water while doing any sort of spell work or anything that you know, you're trying to manifest something, I find that sitting in water is the best way. And it's the one that's the most potent for me. So that's what I'll do. I also like to utilize menstrual blood, whether it's, you know, available from my actual body. And I also save it and make menstrual salts with it. So just menstrual blood and salt, and sometimes mugwort oil. And I package them, up in little jars, and so I have that whenever I need it.
Do you give that to clients, or is that something that you utilize yourself?
Both.
Yeah. And what does a client do with that?
It just adds potency to any sort of working, any sort of way that you would use blood. I know a lot of people prefer using like, you know, actual like blood from their veins, but I find that menstrual blood is way more potent, and it makes more sense to my rational mind that's, you know, there's stem cells.
Sure, it's something to do with life. It
creates life. So for me, that seems more potent, and it's always proven more successful. And you know, I've done it the other way, and I mean, I do definitely believe that blood is necessary to create something potent.
Okay, so this brings us to a topic that I like to talk about with everybody, which is what spirits are and what the sort of spiritual realm is, and blood, I think, is a you know, an archetypal connection with that. And a lot of people see, you know, the blood as being something that spirits want and utilize in some way. I don't know if that's the way you're looking at it, but so how does like the realm of beings outside of your self, how does that play into the work that you do?
So this is something that I'm learning.
Mm-hmm.
For most of my work, I've always just kind of relied on self and intuition, because this is so long actually, but so just as a side note, I definitely have sort of powers, right? But I'm not like, I don't have powers like some people that I know do, in the way that they can see ghosts and they can talk to spirits, and they're successful at that. I'm not to that point yet, or I'm really trying. So I don't want to put it out there that I have a potential, like an exponential, or what's the word I'm looking for? A huge connection to spirit, because I don't in that sort of capacity. I don't have relationships with demons or angels or anything like that. Anybody that I invoke or call on, at least not yet, because. But
you do call on things. Or no?
No, I don't.
Okay, so
that's the thing, is that I, you know, I'm basically just focusing on like sort of the elemental aspect and the interconnectivity of all things. So, you know, I'm thinking of it in just that way, and just being able to combine those things together with a sort of divine ability to tap into your environment. For me, it's more environmental and more elemental than it is spiritual.
Entity related.
Right, like
and so what do you see the blood as doing? This is how this all sort of ties together to what you were talking about before. What does the menstrual blood connect with? It's just its inherent creative force. So how does it work?
Yeah, so for me, I'm not like feeding an entity to me, which I'm sure that it's successful if you have a relationship with one, that would work. I believe wholeheartedly that that's possible. And the more involved I get, the more I believe in it. Like, I used to think that archetypes were just a tool for humanity. And more recently, in the past, like 2 years, I've come to understand that I think that while that may be true, it's also true because they exist. So I think that it's sort of an Ouroboros sort of thing, which I believe all of life is, as above, so below, as within, so without. So 100% absolutely agree with it. Microcosm. But for me, it's just an elemental piece of life-giving force, which is why I use it. Like, that's something that we need to survive. It's kind of like when you use the elements, like we need to breathe, right? We need blood, we need these certain things to give life to something that's so that when you create some sort of manifestation, you want to give that. Like, you want some sort of energy source. You want some sort of like vessel to keep it in. You want these sort of things because you see it in action. You see it in your daily life, what you can use to create. And so then when you know what life is, and so if you want to give life to something, then give it life, if that makes sense.
It
so
does.
That's how I do.
I know there are probably some people watching this who wonder if you are having clients who have a sort of quasi-sexual relationship with you in some way or other, and you're giving them your blood. Do you have a way of sort of disconnecting that from yourself so that it's not like you're not so magically entwining yourself with that person as you're in that process, or do you feel like you're just such an open book that it's okay, it doesn't matter?
Like my bylines say, moon blood as the mother of spells, right? I seriously believe in that. I also do not believe in any sort of capacity any motherfucker can use my own menstrual blood against me. Like, that's not going to happen. So, I mean, and I don't believe anybody would really do that, although there are messed up people in the world, but I don't really have enemies. I'm not really anticipating anybody to want to harm me anyway, but it's sure.
I lost your video for a second there. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
but it sure as hell is going to be my menstrual blood that's going to hurt me, right?
So I'm
not worried about that, and I'm sure people would disagree, be like, "What a dumb bitch!" Like, putting that out there. But
I wouldn't say that, but myself. But I feel like just the act of saying that is in itself a protection, in my opinion. But there are going to be people who feel otherwise. But I do want to say that when I was a young man, I used to believe that no one cast curses on each other or did like coercion spells on each other. I really didn't think that was going on, and it's possible it was going on less because there's been kind of an explosion of folk magic in the last 15 years or so that really, so I mean, there's a lot more of that those techniques are a lot more publicly available than they were back, when I was first coming up. But I know there are a lot of people who use magical work, particularly magical work where they can have something personal concern of the person a lot these days. I will speak in front of groups and I'm like, none of you people do curses, and they will all just be like, no, we do all that. Yeah, like they do it for any purpose. So I mean, personally, I'm like, why would you want to do that? But that's people.
Oh, I wholeheartedly believe in curses and hexes. Like, I believe in it. I just think that if you're going to use my menstrual blood to curse me, that's going to backfire. That's going to go right back on you. That is not going to come to me. And the sheer audacity and ignorance and violence that would take is not something that I'm open to, and I'm completely protected from. That's my body against my body. That doesn't make any sense. It's not going to happen. You can try. I mean, yeah, people are weird.
Let's not have a competition. Like, no, we're not starting a competition to try and curse Sarah at this point. No.
Thanks. Please don't. But yeah, wrong house, bro. Like, yeah. Not
so
gonna happen.
in terms of doing your magic, is there like a conjuration formula or any sort of fixed practices that you've acquired over the years, or that you've intuited and created for yourself, or is it always just sort of a free-flowing experience for you?
It's not free-flowing, but it's really basic. So I totally agree with paying attention to the elements. So having some sort of piece of something for the elements is key. I think that there needs to be, you know, sort of like when you create an herbal works, you need sort of a, you know, a menstruum to pull the energy from, and whatever it is that is creating the energy, right? So, you know, you have your tea, and then you have your tincture, like your alcohol or your oil or your whatever, you know, whatever you have, or your, you know, your water, right? So you have those two elements, and then you have the other elemental things that give it life: the breath, you know, the water, the blood, the, you know, the food, or the piece of the earth, right? So it's basically like nurturing and creating any sort of like healing thing that gives it its power. So I definitely, it isn't like willy-nilly, but I mean, you always do what you can, but obviously potency, I think, relies on how much life you can give it through what you're feeding it.
Sure.
And how you're, and how you're putting, like, what sort of vessel you have, and what sort of how you're putting it out there. How's it integrating, right? So it's something I take seriously, but not like so seriously that it needs to be at like 12:24 a.m. on the certain thing. But if you want to create something specific to something, you better, like, I do definitely believe to pay attention to the planets, and I believe in talismanic magic, you know, in the way that when you create things, they're born, right? So then they have this influence. And so it's important to pay attention to that. Not necessary, but the more potent, the more you pay attention, as many layers as you can, the more potent it's going to be.
When you're mixing up an herbal concoction, is there a ritual component to that, even if there is not necessarily specific words that you say, or specific? Do you feel like you are doing a magical action when you're mixing up a you know, some sort of creation?
Yeah, I mean, you're healing.
What's
right?
that?
You're healing somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So intention is absolutely important. Like, I'm not going to do it when I'm pissed off about something else.
Right.
And then depending on what the person needs, right? Like, obviously I'll choose the herb right, I'll choose the menstruum right, but I might do it at a certain time of day, right? Or I might do it on a certain day of the week. Or I might do it, you know, when there's some sort of celestial events that are relevant. So my ritual boxes are broken down to the planetary influences. So, you know, you can order like a Jupiter box, or a Saturn box, or a Venus box, or a moon box, and it depends on sort of what it is that you need. And then when I create these sort of things for you, all that's in consideration. And so there's one answer across the board, but each thing is dependent on the needs of the person.
Do you try and follow the sort of the lunar currents with that as well, or is that less something that you're interested in?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm like, what was it? I like made some sort of comment the other day, because like, I live in a really small town, and apparently it's like a big deal that I'm a witch, and identify as such, and have a website, a witch website.
You also are a dramatic looking person. You've got, you know, a lot of ink on you.
Right. And I forget about that shit, even though I did it on purpose. Like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, wait. But, yeah. And so, you know, I put it up like, oh, you know, I finally get to fulfill my every little girl's dream to be that, like, you know, that feared, like, witch, like, on the hill, but who actually just likes the moon and teeth, you know? So, yeah.
Is that every little girl's wish? I've never been a little girl, so you think that's a common fantasy, that little girls want to be the sort of spooky lady at the top of the hill?
I don't know. My life is pretty much an echo chamber, you know, at this point, because I've like kicked everybody else out. So it seems like that's a commonality. Yes.
I'm not doubting that it is. I just think that's interesting.
I've come to places like this, and I'm like, oh shit, that's right. This is not a universal agreed on, you know,
principle. Yeah.
I might be a little strange.
Are you in California or Hawaii right now?
California.
Oh, okay. I think that I mean, people don't people expect there to be sort of a certain fringe element everywhere?
I live really rural. We live really rural.
Okay, yeah. I've only lived in the San Jose and Los Angeles, so it seems like.
Yeah. So we're like we're right at the base of the Lost Coast, right? Like, or literally like live on the ocean cliffs here that are super wild, and but there's like 60 people that live here. It's like 30 minutes to the nearest like grocery store, like which isn't like super long, but you know, it's through like the one winding, you know, all that stuff, which I absolutely love. And it's the spookiest place.
Sure.
And it's got like weird murder vibes because there's like so much weird history here. But yeah, I love it. But yeah, obviously I forget that like I'm weird. Like not everybody wants to be that weird ass witch in the woods.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a common young girl's, you know, fantasy too, because it's a powerful position, right? I mean, that's the part, in a way, that's the part of the feminine mysteries that you probably least embody at this moment in your life because you're still a young woman. But it's that crone energy, right? The
oh yeah, I love it so much. The don't give a fuck anymore. Like I love it.
So do you grow any of your herbs, or are they all from commercial sources?
Yes and no. So yes, I'm working on it because I just moved, and you know, I planted a handful. And then I got chickens and they killed them all. So not that this is my first, it's not my first rodeo, so I'm really embarrassed, but I just didn't have time to pay attention or do things. I just wanted it to get it started. But I have like, I think I spent $150 on seeds, and I'm starting to cultivate them and really looking forward to it. But I'm also trying to compromise that with what animals and how I want to keep my animals. And so, but you know, what I feel the most connected to now is sort of the process of like growing the baneful plants, which I know is like right now really, there's a lot of cultivated interest around that. But when I started reading some books about it and really getting into it, I realized that, you know, we've been talking about, you know, in the background of this about like what my identity is, or what my common thread, or like what it's holding me together. And I feel like the answer is there. It's something with those plants in particular. And it's not necessarily that I need it to be a hustle for myself and I need to sell them and I need to do this shit, but that's the key, and I need to figure it out.
Which baneful plants are you working on right now?
Well, you know, belladonna is a huge one. That's I think where a lot of people start. In Hawaii, the brugmansia is a plant that they get confused. They're related. They get confused. So actually, the brugmansia was what got started, like what my passion, like where it was birthed, I guess. And then so it naturally led to belladonna. So I've been studying her a lot. But henbane and mandrake really intrigued me. You know, wolfsbane. I mean, all of them. But I'm not an authority, so you're not going to get very far asking me about them, except that I am very intrigued by working with them and making medicine from them. So I'm currently growing them right now. They're not easy. It's not the best, but this is something that I really want to nurture. And so I want to create this garden. My husband is really excited about it, you know, so he thinks it's kind of hot for some reason. So he's like, yeah, you know, grow this plants or whatever. I don't know what.
Hey, I mean, obviously that's, you know, like you said, everybody's got their fetish, right? But
is she cooking me a meal or is she murdering me? It's kind of exciting. Let's do this.
He likes the idea of you being a poisoner.
I think he likes the power part of it. I don't know. Our bedroom's kind of a battlefield. Like this is where we like play out. Like the poisonous plants are just a thrilling piece of our life together, I guess.
I used to have just a ton of baneful plants that I was growing. Once my kids started getting a little older, I got wary of it a little bit, but yeah, right. I mean, I love those plants. There's something very just amazing about those particular plants. Belladonna, henbane. I did not ever successfully get mandrake to go, but I think it might be because it's too warm here. You know, it's just not a good environment. And unfortunately, I also had huge problems with pests with them. The white flies love the solanaceous plants for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
I was constantly having to, like, you know, just spray stuff on them just so much.
Right.
I was also interested in particularly like psychedelic plants. So I had some various like the ayahuasca plants going here, and then some cactuses and stuff, but almost all of it's gone. I still have some cactuses going because those seem to be pretty hard to kill, but the rest of it's all just disappeared. But so that's great. That's awesome that's something that you're interested in. Now,
right. I mean, it's the liminality. I think, you know, like I'm really attracted to that space, that sort of in between space.
Sure.
And I talk about it a lot. So I think, you know, the baneful plants really do that for me. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll have an answer for you someday, but I think the danger, the liminality, also the fact that they're not like as dangerous as, like, you know, like just maybe that's like this place where I can really nerd out and really study and not feel like I'm, you know, it's not like Magick where I like, you know, tell me how to make my magic circle. It's more of like, literally, I need to be able to work with this plant in a very knowledgeable way so I don't hurt myself or others. And so then I can kind of sciencey nerd out about it.
So,
I don't know.
There is a sort of, I mean, you're a teacher, so, and are you still studying to be a midwife, or is that sort of on hold at the moment?
It's literally on hold. Like, I'm still paying to be in the school, but I mean, it costs like $500 a month, and we just moved in this house, and it's the COVID thing, and I just can't afford it. And honestly, I feel it a little bit slipping away, because my interest, you know, honestly, I've been studying midwifery for about 5 years. You know, I've been doing birth doula work on and off. I volunteered as a birth doula. I trained as a chaplain, you know, and doing death doula work, and I have like all the clinical books, and I've done all the work stuff. And like, you know, I feel like I've achieved what I really wanted to achieve as a midwife by being fully confident and capable that if somebody came to me in labor, that it would be great. Like,
you'd be able to manage it.
Right. Like, yes, I can fulfill that role, but I don't need to maybe do it full-time professionally under like a licensure and be that. But if there's an emergency, I feel confident. And I think that's really what was important to me.
If I may, you know, speak totally out of turn, having known you for an hour now or whatever, but it seems like the strands of your life really have to do with sort of like being the archetype of the very traditional witch, you know, that you're a doctor and a midwife and a spellcaster and a healer and a counselor. I mean, like all that, and you want to live you want to be a scary old lady on top of the hill. So I mean, you've got like literally every part of it.
Just a little bit, like it's just like, oh, okay, all right, yeah. But honestly, it came organically. Like it wasn't just
it seems like
all
it's
these
just
things.
Yeah.
It was like first I discovered this, and then it was like, ooh, midwives exist. Like, you need to learn a couple, you know, you naturally get exposed to a handful of herbs that are helpful in labor, and then it like opens the door into like full-blown herbalism. And then once you get into herbalism, then, you know, you start learning about spagyrics, and you start learning about like talismanic, you know, magic, and excuse me. Yeah.
I wonder what that's gonna look like in the recording. We'll see.
It's just naturally meandering, and then if you're already like kind of doing like, you know, the sex, like a slutty sex work piece, and then you're doing the, you know, and you're also a mom, I don't know, and being into animals, and you're just, that's why I'm just like a walking stereotype. It's true, but
no, I don't mean a stereotype. Stereotype isn't what I meant. I meant archetype. You know, more like a, you know, an elemental force is driving you forward towards this vision. I don't think you're the stereotypical witch at all, because you barely want the title, so, and you have a lot of stuff going on that seems different than what a lot of people are doing. So I mean, I wouldn't, don't box yourself in and think that you're being stereotypical at all. It's interesting that you're organically growing towards this sort of
of course you like astrology and herbalism and childbirth, and you want to like, you know, make tea for people. Like it's just, it all kind of goes in one hand begets the other.
Now, what about
the natural order of things?
Before we kind of wrap things up here, can we talk a little bit about practical magic in terms of like, you know, doing spells on people and so forth like that? Is that something that you have as a part of what you're offering to the public, or is that something that you do personally at all, or are you more interested in sort of the healing and nurturing aspect of things?
I don't know. Because I haven't done any spell work on other people, and it's not because I'm morally against it. I just haven't really found a need for it. Doing spells for other people, you know, I'll do that for my children and for my husband, but I haven't like been doing them for other people. It's something that I have offered, but nobody's ever asked. So I can't answer that question. I'm open to it, but I'm not, you know, I'm not out there enough like that. I think that people would come to me, you know, they come to me for tea and like holistic, you know, like healing advice, I guess, but nobody's asked me to do a spell for them, I think, ever, probably.
If someone did, what do you think that you would, how do you think that you would manage that?
You know, I wish that I had a better answer for you.
No, there's no wrong answer to this question. So it's just, I'm just curious.
Like if this was somebody that was hurt by another person that I love, I would absolutely do it. And I would not feel guilty. I feel like, actually, like once I die, like I've said a million times, like I want to be like the Valkyrie of like wounded women and children and like stick around and literally just haunt the fuck out of people that are scary, awful people. And like, I feel like that is definitely a calling. So if somebody wants me to like seek vengeance, and I think that I'm very capable, I've created a really wonderful life for myself with what I can do, that I would love to. Please let me have this opportunity
So you're up for vengeance against those who have done wrong to others. What about more of just like if someone just wants more prosperity or to find love and not specifically aimed at another? Is that something?
Sorry. Yeah, naturally I would take it into some violence. Yeah, absolutely. I'm absolutely open to it. I just don't have anybody that asks me except for like my husband or my immediate family, you know, or like, you know, my really close friends. Like I haven't had like a client come to me, because I guess that I'm not really out there like that. You know, mostly I just talk about my kids and like how cool the ocean is. So I don't know, you know, I don't even know how to advertise. Like it's just not. I think I'd be effective.
This may function as an advertisement for you. I don't know, and we'll see how far it reaches. So, I don't know. It's so awkward for me. But if people want to contact you for getting involved in your subscription enchantments boxes, what is the best way to do that? Well, I have a website. Just, you know what, you could probably just Google The Concoctress and it'll probably pop up all my social media stuff. Okay. Because for some reason it wasn't taken. None of it was taken. I was really shocked. I thought it was really clever and beautiful. And then, I mean, it's my Gmail, it's my Insta, it's my Facebook thing, it's my website, it's everything. So just The Concoctress. I'll collect your info from you as well and put it on, you know, when we launch this as well. So, okay. It's been really fascinating talking to you. I really appreciate the fact that you did this. Even though, just so people know, she really wasn't sure she wanted to do this interview at all for various reasons. But I'm not an authority. Like, what am I going to say? I don't even have any answers. And so, you know, just felt like, well, you want me to just talk about my... Well, I mean, I hope that you'll watch some of the other interviews that I've done, and you're going to see that you stand out as being quite different in a number of ways. Your approach to things is quite different. The way that you look at stuff is different. You know, and my interest is to sort of connect people with the different ways that people approach magic, and to have the different voices be heard. So, I mean, I appreciate the fact that you took the time to do this. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to, I was thinking about if there's anything that I would like to add, but no, I think that we're good. Okay. I think that what I'm really excited about is, you know, creating these boxes and, you know, fulfilling that like general need, right? As the sort of like just walking, talking like healer, which archetype, which I feel really great in, right? I feel really alive there. Yeah, but just give me a chance. I'm just starting this out. So thank you so much for this opportunity, even if I felt really awkward and shy. And you've been such a hero about it the whole time. So thank you so much.